The cross-party approval by US senators means that the Republicans also supported such aid. To what end, then, were their warnings that Donald Trump would avoid supporting Ukraine in its conflict with Russia? Today, I am taking a closer look.
I'm grateful to all those in Congress, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, who voted for this bill. It's a path to my desk. It was a difficult path. It should have been easier and it should have gotten there sooner.
The United States Senate has broken a months-long impasse over aid to Ukraine. Both Democrats and Republicans portrayed the passage of the aid package for Ukraine as a success, proving that the United States continues to play a leadership role on the international stage and support allies in need. According to the head of the US Senate Intelligence Committee, Democrat Mark Warner, the passage of the aid package for Ukraine would not have been possible without the strong support and example of Poland. In a similar vein, the matter was commented on by foreign media. Poland has carried out a diplomatic offensive in Washington in the past weeks to bring about the transfer of needed military aid to Ukraine. The demonstration of force in Washington showed the considerable influence of Poland, a military heavyweight country. The starting point was President Andrzej Duda's visit to the United States. We must do everything to prevent Russia from winning the war in Ukraine. This is today, in my opinion, the most important duty that rests on those countries that call themselves a free, democratic world. I said that these months ahead will be crucial for sure, and that it was necessary to solicit this support everywhere.
You know, this gentleman is doing a fantastic job.
The vote on the Ukraine aid package disproves the ruling party's narrative of Donald Trump's pro-Russianism and leaving NATO member countries to fend for themselves. How does this have to do with fears that when the future, possible President Trump wins, he is supposedly a friend of Russia, then everything will fall apart and go in the opposite direction, that is, making deals with Russia, which is total nonsense. And this is only heating up a certain narrative that is being led by the Democrats, and also our Polish lobby. And what does aid realistically mean for Ukraine? There will be an opportunity to purchase ammunition of various calibers, missiles, systems and equipment that is badly needed. Ukraine's foreign minister in turn announced a fair approach to men of mobilization age residing both at home and abroad. Ukraine's consulates have halted services for men between the ages of 18 and 60, also in Poland. Comments after money was unlocked for our eastern neighbour speak of the West's agreements to crack down on the Russian military. For how long can it have enough forces to attack? Because of the $780 or $760 billion that Putin collected before the invasion, amounts to more than GDP and more than Russia's capabilities, that allows Russia to wage war for about 10 years. Ideally, however, let's hope this forecast does not come true. Editor Holdinska, TV Republika. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak held a news conference with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk on Tuesday, in which he reiterated his country is dedicated to elevating its defence capabilities amid NATO concerns of possible repercussions to Russia's military campaign in Ukraine. During Sunak's one-day visit to Warsaw, Poland, standing alongside his Polish counterpart, Sunak added that Great Britain was also deploying over 16,000 troops to Poland as part of the NATO exercise Steadfast Defender. The cooperation between Poland and Great Britain can be and will be, I am sure of that, an exemplary model also for other partners. We talked for a while about it with NATO Secretary-General, and there is no doubt that out of all the initiatives in which both our countries are active, the coordinated security politics covering the whole continent and Great Britain has to be born immediately. And our common intention is to end the time of some kind of competition, rivalry among different initiatives on defending Europe and Great Britain. Moreover, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said that Great Britain will deploy Royal Air Force Typhoon fighter jets to Poland next year to enforce Polish air defence. Sunak made the announcement to increase spending to well above the 2% target set by NATO. It came on the heels of a new pledge to send arms worth £500 million to Ukraine, including missiles, armoured vehicles and ammunition. He described the increased spending as the biggest strengthening of our national defence since the end of the Cold War, because it's time for us to rearm. Sunak also promised an extra £75 billion in defence spending over the next 6 years.
And across Europe, I think Poland and the UK are part of a growing wave of countries that are taking greater responsibility for our collective security. Poland spending more of its GDP on defence than any NATO ally in Europe. And with today's announcement, the UK will be spending more in cash terms than any NATO ally in Europe.
The target of 2.5% of GDP spending was a recommitment of a target set by former Prime Minister Boris Johnson in 2022. Under the new spending plan, Britain's defence budget would increase immediately and then rise steadily to reach £87 billion at the end of the decade. Not an American but a European missile shield is to guard security on the old continent. The German idea can count on the support of Donald Tusk's government, among others. There is no reason for Europe to be deprived of an effective missile shield. Law and Justice is against it, unless there's a second complementary system. For Law and Justice, the basis of Poland's security is invariably the alliance with the United States, including the construction of a missile shield. These statements are harmful. I don't know whether this is due to Prime Minister Tusk's irresponsibility and lack of knowledge, or whether he really believes in such a concept that Europe can cut itself off from the United States on its own, especially on such an important issue as defence policy function. The idea of a European Iron Dome was conceived in 2022 by German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. This is a German business project which appeared, as far as I remember, probably 2 years ago, so it is relatively new compared to what we have started to build. Poland, just in cooperation with the United States, has been building its own defence systems for several years: Pilica, Narew or Wisła. The German concept is just a plan which is supposed to be similar to Israel's system. Today, however, no one knows whether this system will actually happen. The European Dome exists only on paper. Secondly, we are much further advanced, we, Poland, when it comes to air and missile defence. This is the result of the huge armaments implemented for years by the United States government. We buy weapons from Polish armaments, from South Korea and from the United States. European countries only supply less than 20% of military forces to NATO. The rest are outside Europe, especially the United States. And thinking that Europe will provide its own security is utopia. Unlike the Polish concept, the German shield is not supposed to use American technology. Not surprisingly, Germany is doing everything it can to limit the influence of the United States in Europe. So are the politicians of the Civic Platform. You know that the Polish-American alliance is a worthless thing. It is even harmful because it creates a false sense of security. Complete bullshit. We'll conflict with Germany, with Russia, and we'll think everything is great because we've done the Americans a favour. Suckers, complete suckers. These are Radosław Sikorski's words from 2014. And this, Donald Tusk, who was already sceptical about the construction of a US missile shield in Poland in 2008. The possible installation of a missile shield in Poland must serve to strengthen Poland's security. In our assessment, it does not enhance this security. The US missile shield in Redzikowo was finally launched on December the 15th, 2023. However, its capabilities are incomparably smaller compared to the offer made years ago by former United States President George Bush. Konrad Wąż, TV Republika. The first press release provided to the Polish press agency by the National Geological Institute on human impact on climate change reads, "The impact of increased greenhouse gas emissions, primarily due to human burning of fossil fuels, is greatly overestimated because the role of parallel warming caused by natural factors is not taken into account." According to scientists, knowledge of the history of climate and environmental changes that have been occurring for nearly 12,000 years makes it possible to reasonably predict natural change in the Earth's climate. Experts say that the modern trend of climate warming is only a transitional period from the Little Ice Age that ended in the first half of the 19th century. The modern warming will probably reach its maximum at the end of this century, after which another cooling will begin. Warmer ocean surface water will stimulate increased evaporation, and this will result in increased cloud cover and more precipitation over neighbouring land areas. After a wave of criticism, the National Geological Institute has retracted from its words and published a position paper on its previous position, and directs responsibility for the material to one person, Professor Leszek Marks. The material prepared by one of the employees, a specialist in quaternary research, Professor Leszek Marks, is not the official position of the State Geological Institute, PIB. In the coming days, PIB will take steps to reach out with this clarification to all media outlets that posted the PAP information containing inaccurate information, which we passed on to the public. Within hours, the National Geological Institute was for and against the global warming theory. It raises the question, does the organisation itself know what it thinks about climate change?
Mamy tutaj do czynienia z autocenzurą.
What we have here is self-censorship and self-criticism made by the Institute itself. Previously, we had the well-known authority of the expert Professor Marks, a long-time specialist in the given matter. And it seems that the freedom of doing science also allows to express views, but it turns out that a scientific view based on many years of research is not recognised by climate experts. Then it ceases to be considered a scientific subject.
Na źródłach.
Climate change and the reforms planned in connection with it have been the subject of public discussion for a long time. In the European Parliament, a debate titled Attack on Climate and Nature, Far-Right and Conservative Attempts to Destroy the Green Deal and Prevent Investment in Our Future.
Zielony Ład to zagadnienie kontrowersyjne.
If an issue is controversial, and the Green Deal is because a wave of protests swept across Europe, it should be debated. Trying to label opponents of the Green Deal as far-right is actually an attempt to limit freedom of speech.
Uważam, że należy o tym rozmawiać, należy na ten temat debatować.
Opposition to the direction of the European Union's climate policy is not to be silenced. A solidarity protest against the Green Deal will take place in Warsaw on the 10th of May.
Protest oczywiście.
The protest, as I hope everyone knows, is on the 10th of May in Warsaw. We are protesting against the Green Deal. In fact, our demands are that the entire Green Deal policy be thrown into the trash, because it is a policy harmful to Union members, to the Polish economy and to the European economy. Let's recall that the European Commission has recommended reducing greenhouse gas emissions in Europe by 90% by 2040. And total so-called climate neutrality EU ideologues want to achieve this in 2050. Experts predict this will cost us all.